Welcome to the Retired Athlete Mentality Podcast, the podcast where we dive deep into the stories of former collegiate athletes who have transitioned from the competitive world of college sports to the grueling but rewarding world of endurance racing. Each episode, we bring on athletes who have gone from courts, fields, and tracks to marathons, triathlons, and even ultras. School's back in session. Welcome to the show. What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Retired Athlete Mentality Podcast. I am your host, Jamal from Running State University. And on this episode, we have Ellie Pollion from Michigan State University, where she competed as a rower and a coxswain. In her final year, she helped the Spartans finish in the Collegiate Rowing Coaches Association Top 25 poll for the first time since 2019. She finished her collegiate career as a scholar athlete, award winner, outstanding senior award recipient, and a two-time All-Big Ten academic athlete. Since graduating, Ellie has competed in high rock sprint triathlons, half marathons, while completing her master's in HR and management at the University of Tennessee. Ellie, let's talk about your retired athlete mentality. How have you been?
Good. Thank you so much for having me on, Jamal.
Of course. How is the life in Tennessee?
Yeah, Tennessee, it's been great. It's super different from Michigan State. So my initial plan was actually to stay at Michigan State because I had 5 years of eligibility there and just continue rowing post-grad. So I finished my undergrad degree in 3 years, and then I was going to use my 2 remaining years of eligibility to finish grad school. But as happens pretty frequently, life had other plans.
That's right.
And I was actually able to go to the University of Tennessee where I could get my master's in HR and management in 1 year. And that just felt like the better plan for me, despite how much, I loved rowing and enjoyed being on the team. The post collegiate athlete life just seemed like the better option for what I had set up. So, since I've been down there, I have been able to stay connected to athletics with the Olympic strength and conditioning internship. So, I'm still working with a lot of athletes down at Tennessee, but just kind of on the strength and endurance training side rather than on the athlete side myself.
Yeah, that is pretty awesome. Working with athletes is a lot of fun. But I'm going to take you back to high school where you mentioned that you were a four-sport athlete, but none of those sports were rowing. What were those sports?
Yeah, so my main sport was basketball, but I also played softball, volleyball, and I ran track. So my initial plan was to play basketball in college somewhere at a D3 or a small D2. But at the beginning of my junior year, I got an email from the Michigan State head women's rowing coach. And, she said that she saw my basketball highlight reel, and that she wanted me to come down and try it out. And I initially thought it was actually a mistake. I was like, oh, maybe wrong Ellie, wrong sport. This can't be for me. And then
Yeah.
she explained it a little further and she's like, oh, this is actually pretty common. Most collegiate rowers don't actually row in high school because it is such a niche sport. So I came and I tried it out while I was down visiting Michigan State, and I fell in love with the school. In my time in the actual shell in the boat, I also kind of fell in love with rowing, and I just couldn't pass up the opportunity to go D1 Big Ten. So I knew it was going to be really different from anything I'd ever done before because I'd never trained like a D1 athlete before because I was not going to go D1 for basketball or any of my other sports. But I was just ready to try something new and do it at the most competitive level for college.
Yeah, absolutely. Big Ten is a dream for a lot of people. And so you already kind of talked about it, but college rowing is not your typical recruiting process. And from what I understand, it's a sport that at the NCAA level doesn't heavily recruit, and most people are walk-ons. Is that how you experienced it?
Yeah, I myself wasn't a walk-on, but a lot of schools rely pretty heavily on their walk-ons being able to get the numbers in for the team. So with Michigan State, for example, I'd say probably around 30% of the girls on our team were walk-ons, and we usually keep quite a few. And then as the year goes on, at just about every school with rowing, numbers kind of dwindle down towards the end of the year because it is a lot of people's first time ever doing the sport, and they try it out and
Yeah.
they're like, "Whoa, this is way harder than we initially thought it was going to be." Yeah, walk-ons are super important for rowing. My
Yeah.
kind of recruitment process was like recruited novice walk-on. So I wasn't
Hmm.
necessarily a true walk-on, but I had the same amount of experience or honestly less than other walk-ons.
Yeah, that is something that I've seen in collegiate sports is that, teams will have essentially tiers of recruits that they'll work with throughout the whole time that they're recruiting athletes to build their team. So it's kind of an interesting, recruiting process compared to, football, basketball, baseball. Rowing is a smaller sport, but still recruits on a, in the big power teams. And so when you got to Michigan State, what did the training look like? I imagine it's early mornings, super cold. What did that look like for you at Michigan State?
Yeah, so early mornings, that's a real thing. I'm not really sure what it is about rowers, but it's like kind of just the culture. Is I was up at 5 a.m. 6 days a week. Practice
Yeah.
started at 6:30 sharp and it went till about 9:30. And then we would usually have lift or weights right afterwards. And that was truthfully the most intimidating thing for me at first. I was like, wow, 5:30, like I'm not really used to that. You get used to it soon, and you either love it or hate it. But if you row early mornings, but in terms of the actual practices, it was different than what I expected. And it was truthfully harder than what I expected. Being recruited, having never played the sport, I kind of thought in my head, I mean, gosh, how, obviously it's hard, but if they think I can do it, I really had no idea what to expect other than knowing it was going to be hard. And it was definitely harder than I thought, but every moment of it was definitely worth it. The just volume of cardio and physical endurance was certainly a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
practices are 3 hours, and especially when you're on the water, you're spending 2.5 hours just straight cardio, distance
Yeah.
endurance mixed with a little bit of sprinting. So
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you had a pretty solid mindset going into it. Did you feel that, your high school sports kind of prepared you for that?
mindset wise, I would say high school and travel sports prepared me for knowing that I can do hard things. In terms of actual like physical preparedness, my first month at Michigan State at 5'8", about 115 pounds. And when I came home for Thanksgiving break, I was 145 pounds and a lot faster.
Wow. There you go.
So,
Getting big.
yeah.
Would you say that, you did it for, it sounded like 3 years or 4 years?
3 years. I
Okay.
graduated 1 year early with my undergrad degree. So, for my
Okay.
entire undergraduate experience, I was on the team.
Okay. And then during the 3 years, how did you feel you developed, as a rower from, that first year down to the last season?
Yeah, so starting as a novice when you really know nothing, everyone's pretty much starting on a level playing field. Some girls are going to be a little bit naturally faster. Some girls are going to pick up on the technique a little bit. And I certainly got a lot faster. And the growth you make from year 1 to year 2 is pretty exponential because you're learning the sport and learning how to actually get fast and develop that endurance. But as much as I loved rowing and was able to develop as a rower, I felt that socially and with my degree background in human resources and just my interests as a person, I was super interested in coxing, and
Mm.
coxswains are the little person at the front of the boat is the best
Yep.
way to describe it. They're responsible for all the steers, all the calls, making sure that everybody's in time, and just pretty much like leading the ship, leading the boat. So I asked my coach if I was able to do kind of like a dual role and
Yeah.
switch to more of a focus on coxing because size wise, I was able to, fit in the seat. And because that's one of the most important things. Can you fit in the coxswain seat? It's a little bit
Right.
smaller than the rest of the seats. And I'm super grateful she was able to allow me to kind of pursue that and see if it was something that I was, really interested in, good at, and liked. So, I was in a unique and lucky position where I was able to do both.
Yeah, and that sounds like it can be, tough because like in any sport, if you're playing two positions, you're practicing two different things. Did that feel like a burden? Did you feel like you were, up for the challenge? How did you adapt to doing both?
Yeah, well, I think having an open and adaptive mindset is pretty critical. You can really hold yourself back if you aren't open to trying new things and acknowledging that you're not going to be the best at everything you try right away. I mean, that's something I've struggled with when I'm not.
Yeah.
Picking something up super easily, or things are a little bit harder than I thought they were going to be, I get a little frustrated. But I think overall, the experience was like what I gained was worth all the mental difficulties and maybe not picking up on things as fast as I wish I would have. But being able, I think, to have that experience as a rower definitely made me a better coxswain. And then in turn, having that experience as a coxswain made me respect, or having, yeah, that experience as a coxswain when I went back into the rowing seat, it made me, like, respect my coxswains and listen more and understand. So, kind of that 360 holistic view is the biggest thing I took away, but it definitely did not come without a lot of struggles and challenges physically and mentally.
Yeah, definitely. And you can tell that I don't know the sport very well because I called it a coxswain, but
They
it's a
do
cox
throw a W in there for almost no
it's a
reason.
coxswain.
Yeah.
Yeah, but and so one thing that I think I read up on for rowing is that there are two different sizes. Is that right?
There at the NCAA level, we race 2 different boats. We race in
Okay.
varsity 8s, which has 8 rowers and 1 coxswain, and then varsity
Okay.
4s, 4 rowers, 1
Okay.
coxswain. I think what you read up on was sculling and sweeping. All
Okay.
NCAA is sweeping, which is 1 oar, and then,
Mm,
like, each girl has 1 oar, and then sculling is each girl has 2 oars.
okay. And you were on the 8 team?
Yes, I was in an 8.
8 team. Okay. Cool. Well, it sounds like you had a really good experience. You competed at, in the Big Ten. You were also academically stellar. How did you balance that at Michigan State?
Yeah, well, I felt very blessed and fortunate to have all the resources and opportunities that athletes get. I mean, it's definitely something that I think athletes have, deserved and earned, but it's also something people can kind of overlook or take advantage of. So I really leveraged a lot of the different academic tools that Michigan State had to offer. We had great tutors and we had really solid academic advisors. But I think on a more personal level, I always say I got really lucky that I picked a degree and major that I'm super passionate about. Human
Yeah.
resources, it's that great mix between business and helping people and
Yeah.
socializing. And I was able to just get really into all of my classes and really enjoyed what I was learning. And I think I was able to be academically successful because I was so interested. My GPA was much better in college than it was in high school. So I
Yeah.
think finding your niche is something that's super important. But also, I knew that I was not gonna go pro for rowing or, the odds were pretty small that I was gonna be a professional rower, and I was like, "Well, I'm here at Michigan State. I have the opportunity to row, but I'm here to set myself up for success and pursue my passions for after college." So that was always, for me, a priority is academic success, but thankfully, I was able to just take off with what I was studying.
Yeah, and so that's a great segue into, what we're going to talk about next, which is the transition from college athletics to, you're in grad school, but you're also doing endurance sports. So you mentioned that you competed in half marathons, sprint triathlons, and high rocks. Did you do those after graduating, or was that something you did while you were there?
My sprint triathlon, my first one was the summer that I was still on the team, so the summer of my sophomore year. It was just kind of as a way to continue to train. As our training plan sometimes just says, "Get in 2 hours of cardio." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Okay, well, that's less than a sprint triathlon, so I'll just sign up for one of those." And my first time ever doing a sprint triathlon, I'd actually never swam or done any more than treading water for like 5 minutes. And then
Okay.
you hop right in and it's about a half-mile swim. Finished absolutely dead last in the swim, like last group to go, finished completely last. And I was like, I'm fine because, I made it out of the water. And then I actually ended up finishing like in the top 25% because I was able to make up for it on the bike and on the run. But I think that was kind of the moment where I was really excited about something other than rowing or some type of like physical activity and exercise other than rowing that I knew I could pursue after I was done with my collegiate career. Then the half marathons and the high rocks training that came after I graduated. And I was super lucky this summer to work out in Portland, Oregon at Nike's world headquarters, where they just have unbelievable training facilities.
Oh
So
yeah.
the opportunity to be able to train was not only like affordable, but I was surrounded by friends and coworkers that trained at the same level. I thought that's definitely something that's very important in my development as a post grad continuing athlete doing different endurance sports. Surrounding yourself with people that have the same mindset and the same passion. There were days where I really didn't want to get up before a day
Mm.
full of meetings and work and everything, like at 5 in the morning to go work out before. But because I had friends and coworkers that held me accountable, I was, able to do it reluctantly some days, but every day.
Yeah. And then when did you do your first high rocks?
I'm training for my first High Rocks now, but I'll be competing for it in July in Chicago.
Oh, that'll be great.
Yes. So I think with all, I mean, because you listed a few different things. A high rocks is very different from a half marathon, which is very different from a sprint triathlon. Rowing is the same repetitive motion over and over and over again. So it definitely gives you a lot of time to perfect the craft, but there's not
Yeah.
much variation in what you're doing. So my mindset out of college is, rowing gave me the physical capability to try and do a lot of things, which is amazing. So I want to try as many different endurance sports as possible.
Yeah, that's a whole spectrum, half marathon, triathlons, high rocks. Those all test different types of endurance, whether it's throwing 100 wall balls or, swimming or, just running. So it's crazy to see that your rowing experience allowed you to build into all of those different things while still being strong, still being good at what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say the biggest shift I've seen mentally from competing and rowing to then doing on your own endurance activities, or actually signing up and paying to do these activities. You got to be really passionate about it.
Yeah.
Is just a love for yourself over a love for the sport, I would say. So with the endurance training that I'm doing now, I feel like I've really taken the time to understand, what my body needs and how my body works. And it's something that's fulfilling to me instead of, whereas when you're on a team, it's you're sacrificing certain things about yourself for the team and for the sport. So that's been a mental transition for sure, but I think definitely a healthy one.
Yeah, that I couldn't have said it any better. It's the mentality changes when you're on a team sport, and sometimes it changes for the worse where you're a little tough on yourself, because it is just yourself. But sometimes it works out in your favor, and like you're saying, it's broaden you into multiple different things. And it's really cool to see, you trying to learn about your body and how it works, especially because you need it for a long period of time to do all these activities, But something that made me think of is, so you've been doing sports essentially since high school and you've continued sports and endurance training. What strengths do you think that you've developed from sports and from transitioning to endurance sports?
Yeah, I think the physical aspect is definitely super important. Like you said, we all have one body. And it's really important that we take care of it and honor it and respect it. And sometimes honoring and respecting your body means pushing it to a point of discomfort so that you can
Yeah.
grow. Because, without discomfort, there is no growth. So I would say something I've definitely taken away from the transition is different ways to get uncomfortable and different ways to grow. And mentally kind of on the same aspect too is I was used to rowing and I was used to coxswain and I had a very routine schedule that really didn't change that much for 3 years and I was
Yeah.
super comfortable with it. And now being post grad school, strength and conditioning internship, working as well as attending grad classes and still trying to find time for myself to train, there my schedule is completely different. And there were definitely moments and periods of discomfort that I had to just remind myself, the transition from high school to college was super uncomfortable and everything was new. Now you're entering a new chapter where things are really uncomfortable because everything's different. But it's just kind of remembering that it's a passion, and for me, it's part of my purpose, I think, is just to be here and surround myself with community, that's like-minded, and endurance is just one area where I can find that.
Yeah. And so we've talked about, all of the activities that you're doing. Which one would you say is your favorite?
So far, I would say the training for the high rocks has been my favorite. There's just such a variety. And when I was in high school, I did a little bit of CrossFit just to cross
Hmm.
train. And there are a lot of similar elements of CrossFit and High Rocks, but I would say the training so far for High Rocks has been my favorite because, you can kind of like make up in one area where you laugh, and you get to erg. There's a 1,000-meter erg and a High Rock. So
That's right. Yeah, I have not done a high rocks. The DC, I'm in the DC area, but the DC high rocks apparently sold out within like minutes. So high rocks is definitely a popular sport that people are enjoying and getting into. So I'll have to do better next time. And so, someone who does all these sports must have some sort of, encouraging community behind them. Who would you say, or what would you say keeps you encouraged, keeps you motivated to do these races?
Yeah, I myself in college was able to surround myself with a wonderful faith-based community. Before coming to college, I just wasn't, really sure about the direction I wanted my life to go in. Other than my teammates, what types of people I wanted to surround myself with. And then I had a wonderful roommate. Shout out Elena Rausch, who was, just incredibly supportive and definitely someone I admired. And she really opened my eyes to a Christian faith based community. And, ever since I kind of dove deeper into that, different areas where I've moved, I've been able to develop different types of strong faith-based communities. So I would say like my personal relationship with the Lord is one that definitely motivates me. I think it's a great way to, honor myself, my body and my purpose and passions as well as a way to stay connected to him as well. And my family is super supportive too. I've moved to Knoxville, Tennessee. I've moved to Portland, Oregon. I've moved to East Lansing, Michigan, Grand Rapids, Michigan, and then my hometown, Petoskey, Michigan. So I've been, in a lot of different places just in the past 3 years.
Yeah.
So, I'm not in a season of growing my roots and settling yet. So it's for me important to lean back on my family and just be able to let them encourage me and keep them updated with everything I'm doing. So they've been incredibly supportive.
Yeah, that's super awesome that you've been able to develop a community pretty much everywhere you've gone, and family is still there if you need them. If your community is not available, you still got family that's there to help you. And so now you are earning your master's. What does that look like with social life, training? And I think you also mentioned you're doing stuff with Olympic lifting. What does that all look like now, and how does that balance out for you?
Yeah, so a team is a built-in friend group, and that's definitely something I always knew. I was, like, super grateful at Michigan State. I mean, gosh, there's 90 girls on the team. There's 90 people that you are seeing minimum of 5 hours a day. So
Yeah.
you're bound to get along with at least a few of them.
Yeah.
And, there's forced bonding and trauma bonding from working.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
um I think that, at Tennessee with getting my master's, it's similar with the cohort we have. We see each other every single day at the same time in the same classroom, same teachers, and we're learning the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's similar, but it's different because the reason we're all there isn't, because of physical fitness and endurance and rowing. The reason we're there is to get a degree. So I think kind of that mindset shift of finding similarities with people and like needing to take the time and dig a little deeper to maybe find some of those similarities has been super important for me in building community as well, being intentional and seeking out different groups of people as well. So that's part of the reason I got into the Olympic lifting, strength and conditioning with athletes. I knew that I was good at lifting and coaching and teaching. And I knew that there would be, like minded people that were around my age in that same environment. So I was like, well, of course, this is something I'm going to try. So I was able to find
Yeah.
good community with that. But I think, when you stop rowing and you stop playing the Division 1 sport, you have a lot of time. I'm doing so many more things and I still have so much more time on my hands than when I was
Yeah.
ever rowing. Full-time student, an internship, working a job and doing some part-time stuff and I'm like, "Wow, I still have so much free time." So just trying different things as well.
Yeah, and so, we've talked a lot about the different things that you've tried. When you are doing those things, do you feel that you are just as competitive as you were when you were at Michigan State, or did you feel that, hey, this is, I'm not competing to an extent, so I'm going to do this as a more casual thing? Which kind of way, which mentality did you go with? The more maintained competitiveness, or just, hey, I'm here to, enjoy myself with this run and get it done?
At first, I definitely tried to maintain competitiveness. And that led to really quick burnout
Mm,
because I didn't have a full team coaching staff, mental health support staff,
yeah.
and, school behind me to help me, find that motivation and help with any of that burnout. And then I think that just took a lot of self reflection and like understanding that you're not competing at the same level and, you're not competing for a team. Those were all very, like, individual competitions that I did. So being a little gentle with yourself is something that I had to learn hands-on pretty fast,
Yeah.
but it's just so important to find, like, what motivates you and what works best. My team is what motivated me at Michigan State. So, take away the team, but you still have, like, this fitness and this passion. You need to switch the motivation and kind of adapt that motivation to your current stage in life. If I ever find myself on another team competition, I'm sure, it'll all come right back. But telling
Yeah.
myself that, you don't need to sit on the erg for 3 hours, you're post grad and you're training for
Yeah.
something different. Like, not every day needs to be a half marathon.
Yeah.
So,
Definitely managing self expectations is important. It's something that I've seen a lot of people struggle with, and it's something that, helps you keep doing it for longer. It's tough to go out there, burn yourself out, and then try to get back into it for the same thing, whether it's a marathon, half marathon, or high rocks. So that's definitely important. And I love to hear that, you've dialed it back to an extent, but you're still, pushing yourself to hard limits and learning new things about your body, which is super cool. And so would you say that there was anything that surprised you after that, or are you pretty much was it pretty much you knew that, hey, I've settled down. I've realized that this is not completely a team competition. What would you say surprised you after reflecting on, being done with competitive sports?
The biggest surprise was how different I was able to feel and recover on the day to day. Especially that first year and a half at Michigan State when I was, hyper focused on rowing and training and learning everything new all at once. Your body's taking on a lot of volume, and I didn't have much energy left over for really anything else. And then once I started coxing and keeping up with that same volume of training, my body kind of felt the same way, but mentally, because coxing is such a mental activity, sport, you're, expending a lot of mental brain power. I found myself being really mentally exhausted and not having much, room for anything else in my life. So I would say the biggest surprise is the energy that I have mentally and physically. And then the way that I've been able to pick up different things, the way I've been able to strength train differently, and the way that I've been able to, just keep my endurance up on even things like hikes. If I would have taken and done some of the hikes I've done within this past year, freshman or sophomore year of rowing at Michigan State when I was, in my best shape ever, I probably couldn't have gone for half the distance that I did.
Yeah.
So just different areas in my life where energy is kind of popping up, kind of that like renewal of social life and renewal of active life in different ways.
Yeah. We can obviously tell that you are a very active person, and anything is free game.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and so we know that you're into a lot of different sports. What do you have on the calendar next?
My next calendar endurance race is in Knoxville, Tennessee. That one is just like a little for fun 5K with
Yeah.
some friends, but my next big event is going to be that July High Rocks.
High rocks. Yeah.
Yes.
No half marathons. Are you going to go into the marathon distance?
Oh man, I've thought about going into the marathon distance, but it's just about every time I wrap up that half marathon and I'm exhausted, I'm like, wow, I couldn't imagine looking down at my watch and being like, oh, halfway done. So
Halfway done. Yeah,
it's not on the 2026 docket, that's for sure.
that is no pressure. Just because you do a half doesn't mean you have to do a full. Half is a great race. A half marathon's actually my most favorite race because your body isn't as crushed as a marathon, and it's a little bit faster. But that's awesome. I'm excited to hear about your high rocks and how that goes, and then any activities or any interests, sports that you pick up later. But I'll wrap it up now. It's been an awesome conversation with you. Before I wrap it up, where can people follow you and connect with you?
Yeah, my Instagram is Elizabeth Polion, Elizabethpolion. And then LinkedIn is Ellie Mae.
Awesome. So, what I'll do is I will put your information in the show notes so that people can connect with you, whether it's through Instagram or LinkedIn, and make that connection.
Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome, Ellie. So, this has been an amazing discussion. Thank you for coming on the Retired Athlete Mentality podcast, and we will talk soon.
Perfect. Thank you.